Hello, lovely people. It's Hila here, Saturday Night Stitch, and I hope that you're having a fantastic day wherever you are. And thank you so much for tuning in to my sewing channel. So today's post, we're going to be talking about pattern drafting books. I got into pattern drafting pretty early on in my sewing journey because I really wanted to understand the architecture of sewing patterns, to understand how they come up with this thing called ease and what have you. And I've always been that sort of a person. Even as a child, if I learned a math equation, I wanted to understand how did they derive that equation, or how did they derive that. And so getting into pattern drafting was a very natural extension for me. And over the years, I've accumulated a range of pattern drafting books. Again, that's the kind of person that I am when I get into something. I try and accumulate as much information as possible. And then I'll sift and sort and find out what works, what doesn't work. And then I will keep what I think is the core essential that will help me with a particular area. And in this case, these pattern drafting books that I'm going to share with you, these are the ones that I think are actually really good. So if you're considering getting a pattern drafting book, or considering dipping your toes into the wonderful world of pattern drafting, this is definitely the video for you. So let's get started. The first one, of course, is the classic Winifred Aldridge, Metric Pattern Cutting for Women's Wear. I have the 6th edition. There's several editions that are rolling out there because this book has been around for quite a long time. So this particular one, it does say that it is fully revised and updated to include brand new and improved layout. So I have seen some of the older editions, and there's very little difference. So if you do somehow find yourselves with the opportunity to get your hands on an older version, still don't pass that up, because I think 90% of it is just about the same. This edition's got things like computer aided design added into it, because that was the technology that was coming into play over the last 3 decades or so. So it's a really, really good one, and it gives you very good foundational basics. So the blocks, it takes you through. So first of all, actually, it does talk about the garment industry. So this one is very much written from a perspective of working within the garment manufacturing industry. So it talks about, the design process, how you do the layout, etc. And then we go into the blocks. So it's got this skirt blocks, and then it's got the bodice blocks, and then it's got the dress blocks and things like that. Having drafted something from this book, so I've done the skirt, the bodice, the trouser block from this, as well as a jacket block at one point. And I've made up the toils for them. One thing that I would say about it is that it has a lot of ease for it, which makes sense because this is mainly speaking to garment industry, and with the sizing for RTW, they try and fit in more people than less. So it does have a lot of ease. And so I found that with the drafts that I made from here, I would always have to take in the seams quite a fair bit to get them to fit in the way that I wanted to. But otherwise, a very good, solid book that I would say even a beginner, somebody who's very brand new to pattern drafting, the instructions are laid out so thoroughly, step by step. Very, very useful. So some of the illustrations that you will get in here. So let's see if I can show you. It does have an 80s vibe. Some of the designs, I thought, they do look a little bit 80s. So you'll have that. And so you have to use a little bit of your imagination to try and imagine what that might look like with the fabric that you use. So it has also some, if you're into this sort of stuff, like reading about product life cycle management, product data management, and all that. So that's some of the newer stuff that you get in the newer editions. But a really, really good book. And I like the fact that it is hardback. I think hardback books are more hard-wearing, pardon the pun. So that's that one. The next book is from Helen Joseph Armstrong, and it's the 5th edition of Pattern Making for Fashion Design. And again, like the Winifred Aldridge, there isn't that much of a difference between the editions. I think it's more they update them for updated technologies that have come into place. But otherwise, the fundamental bare bones, 90% of it is going to be the same. So this, as you can tell by its biblical status here, that it is very comprehensive. And this is for fashion design. So it does talk a lot about fabric and the different types of fabric and how that will impact the drape of a particular design. And because it's written for fashion students, it does have little exercises. So you might get excited because you see a particular style that you think, oh, this is quite nice. But then it turns out it's an exercise for a student to practice, a fashion student to write out the steps of how they would create that, whether they would start off with a straight skirt block, spread it out, and then add ruffles. So it's got this one, since it's written more for fashion, you can tell the difference with the drawings, that the drawings are very, high concept fashion, for instance. But it is incredibly comprehensive. So it's got a section on just pockets and plackets and all the different myriad types that you can do. And then you get a section on dresses without waists or seams. And it takes you through all of that. Instructions are quite well written as well. They are very easy to follow, I thought, and they're written step by step. And so, remember that 80s vibe I was talking about? Right there. But it is a really wonderful book. And what I also like about this book is it has got everything. So not only does it do women's wear, it also has men's wear in there. So you can draft men's shirts as well as men's trousers. And on top of that, it also has knitwear. So you've got active wear, so leotards, swimming costumes. You also have a lingerie section where you can draft your own lingerie. And it's also got kids wear, both boys and girls. So it covers everything in it. So it does have, so I've never actually developed the sloper from this book myself, but I have used the steps for doing some other things like with the collars or doing like flounces or flares, leotards for the girls and things like that. So it has been useful for that. And it's also quite inspiring. It does have some really lovely fashion drawings. So I do recommend this just for the fact that it covers everything in one place, and it gives you ideas of how you can, add some little nice details. If you want to add pockets or anything like that, you've got an entire section on pockets. So I highly recommend this one. Okay, so the next ones are more vintagey style books, which I really quite enjoy because they go into a lot more detail about the history of pattern drafting. This one, hang on, I'll start off with this one because that book follows on from this one. But we've got here Dress Pattern Designing by Natalie Bray. This one is a 4th edition one, although I'm pretty sure that there might be some. And this is metric. So I had to look for one that was metric because I was raised on metric and I find that a lot easier. But you can get ones that are done in imperial measurements if that works out better for yourself. So like most vintage books, they are very wordy. So they're very verbose because putting illustrations into a book used to be more expensive. So they had to be very good at trying to convey the idea to draw a picture using the words. So it does have a lot of words, but it is incredibly fascinating to actually read and understand the background of how they do this. And so this one goes into explaining what a standard block is, what a trade block is, and how you present the blocks, a tailoring block. And all is really, really good. And it also goes into details about how to take measurements properly and the consequences of not taking your measurements properly. You have the option of drafting a basic bodice using, a sloper using some pre-existing measurements, right? And this is useful for people that are starting working in the garment industry. But if you're personalizing it to yourself, you would obviously substitute with your own personalized measurements instead. And then it takes you through how to develop the sloper. So this particular one, it goes into a lot of detail about waist shaping, how that is conducted. This to me reads more like lecture material, and you really get into the nitty-gritty of things, which is, again, very, very useful. I particularly really got a lot out of the chapter on sleeves. I finally understood the concept of sleeve ease and sleeve caps and how that works and how the paradox of the higher your armhole, the more movement you actually have, and that if your armhole is actually too low, you actually restrict the movement. And it's really fascinating. It's a bit difficult to explain, but this covers all of that, and it shows you the different types of caps that you can have with a sleeve. So very, like, if you really want to go in depth to understand why patterns are the way that they are, this is a very good book. Highly recommend that. So this one covers the basics, right? So it teaches you the basic sleeve construction, the basic bodies, and really gets you to know the good form of developing the sloper. Then if you want to go more fancy and add in details, this is where this comes in handy. And this one's called More Dress Pattern Designing by Natalie Bray. And this one, it adds in funky details. So for instance, if you want to do that, it talks you through how to use your sloper, which you will have developed in the other book, and how you would use it to get to that. It's got all sorts of lovely different things. So you've got like lingerie over here. How do you develop that? And it also talks about the fabrics, how you have to be mindful of the fabrics and how they drape. And so everything is referencing the block that you use in order to work with it. And it's got a lot of really wonderful designs, and some of the plates that it has. So for instance, if you wanted to make something like this Georgia O'Keeffe style sleeve over here, it just shows you a plate about how you would be able to develop that. But even though it's quite wordy, it is definitely worth it. It's something that does take longer to read and to consume and to use, but you do come out with a lot of really great information on the other side. And it also covers children's patterns as well. It doesn't really do the menswear, but it covers children's patterns in it and sportswear patterns and things like that. So those two kind of go together. And then this book is what I think, if you probably had to pick one book to buy out of all of these, it would have to be this one. And this is from Susie Furr, and it's called The Architecture of Women's Clothing, Building Patterns, The Architecture of Women's Clothing. And this is a book that I got after having done most of Susie Furr's craftsy classes, the ones on pattern drafting, and it is amazing. So the thing about the Susie Furr approach that she teaches is the moulage, wherein you make your block is derived from making a moulage, which is like something that fits you like a glove, like a second skin. And it takes a while for you to get to that point where you manage to develop this thing that fits you like a second skin. And then that becomes your sloper. And then from that, you then use it to draft other things. If you want to draft a top, you're then going to add the ease to that sloper that you have for a top. Or if you're going to make a t-shirt, you're going to put negative ease depending on the fabric that you're going to use. But it takes a while. So for me, it took me a good 3 to 4 months to develop my first moulage, and it's really quite good. So this, I bought it after I did the craftsy classes, but you can actually use this on its own without having the craftsy classes as well. So I still have, so with the craftsy classes, you got this printout for you to write down your measurements on. And so for me, this was in 2015, as you can see on there, 2015. It's quite comprehensive, the measurements that you have to take. You have to take neck, shoulder, front length, back length, figure breadth, cross front, cross back, bust, under bust, waist, high hip, high depth, a lot of stuff. In fact, I'll probably do another video to show you my moulage because I still have it and I still have that block, and it's still pretty good. The line drawings in here for all of the different styles that you can make, they are not quite as inspirational as, say, some of the vintage ones. So like you've got that for a sweetheart neckline, but they're very much following in the whole architecture principle where you're just seeing the line drawing. So there isn't too much fashion added to it, so those flamboyant drawings, you'll have sections on colors, on how to develop different colors. It also talks about creating production patterns, and that's for people that want to set up a business or become designers or something like that. So I think that this one is probably something that I would highly, highly recommend out of all of them. I feel like this would, if you're prepared to put in the time to make the moulage, that is to say, if you're prepared to put that time in, because that does take a lot of time, but it is so worth it. And the process of actually making the moulage will help you to understand other sewing patterns. So because of doing the moulage and spending so much time on it, I can now look at a pattern from a big four. So I can look at a pattern piece from a big four and I can tell that, oh no, this is going to be too baggy on me, because you're used to seeing it without the seam allowances, and you can tell that that's going to be too big, or that is just too wide on the bust. And so that helps you to be able to make adjustments to other sewing patterns a lot easier when you understand that. So I do think that pattern drafting is worth the investment in time, even if you don't necessarily go on to create your own, catwalk style outlandish garments that you see some of the designers make. It certainly does really improve your sewing game as well, in my opinion. So those are the books that I would recommend for pattern drafting. Thank you so much if you've stayed until the end. I really do appreciate you. You're a rock star. I will be back next week to show you some of the things that I finished making. So this is one of the tops that I have nearly finished, the cami top. I've made quite a few things. I can't do the video this weekend because we're going off camping to a wedding. I'm really excited. This is the first wedding that we've had since before the lockdown, the first family wedding. So very, very excited about that. And so I'm not going to be around this weekend, but I've recorded this and I'll be scheduling this, which is going to be pretty awesome. But next week, I'm so excited to show you the things that I have made. So if you do like sewing, I'm crazy, crazy, crazy about sewing, do hit the subscribe button. Also like, it supports the channel and I do appreciate that. And until I see you next time, lovely people, happy sewing. Take care. Bye. What am I wearing today? I'm actually wearing So Different Everyday Chic dress in Art Gallery fabric. I love this dress so much. I've been feeling myself in this dress. It's so cute. It's so cute. I really, really love this dress. And I was wearing it today when I was out and about. And I was thinking, I need to make another one. I absolutely need to make another one. And I'm thinking something in a solid color, like just pink linen, just getting a pink linen. It is so easy to wear and it's so comfortable. And I feel very chic in it. Okay, lovelies. Till next time. Bye.